What happens when an invisible girl stands up to an untouchable queen? What happens when a monster, a king of shadows and steel, witnesses that single act of impossible courage? This is the story of how a broken vase shattered one world and built another, how a waitress became a queen, and how a man who dealt only in death learned, for the very first time, how to live. Julian Thorne exists in a world scrubbed clean of colour. His reality is the stark monochrome of power, the sharp lines of profit and loss, the deep crimson of necessary violence. He moves through the city like a phantom king, his name a whisper that chokes the air in boardrooms and back alleys alike. His suits are bespoke armour, cut from fabrics darker than a starless night. They conceal a body honed into a weapon, every line of it taut with a lethal grace. His eyes, the colour of a winter storm on a desolate sea, see everything and feel nothing. They are calculators, assessing threats, valuing assets, and discarding liabilities with the same chilling indifference. Section. Tonight, he is a liability. He is escorting Isabella Van Doren to the annual Starlight Charity Gala. She is his fiancée, a title that is less a promise of love and more a merger of dynasties, a strategic alliance, an asset. He watches her across the ballroom, a glittering viper in a diamond-encrusted dress. She laughs, a sound like shattering glass, and moves with the predatory certainty of a woman who has never been told no. He feels the familiar void inside him, a cold, hollow space where emotion is supposed to reside. He had it surgically removed long ago, after the fire, after his father's betrayal, after his mother's mind began to fray and drift away into a fog of forgotten memories. His enforcer, Marcus, stands 10 feet away, a mountain of silent loyalty in a tuxedo. Marcus is the only other constant in his life besides his mother. He is a tool, the most reliable one Julian possesses, but a tool nonetheless. Julian trusts his strength, not his heart. He trusts no one's heart. A commotion near the bar draws his attention, a slight shift in the room's energy. Julian's gaze locks onto the scene with predatory focus. Isabella is there, and in front of her, a waitress. Ilara Vance exists in a world of muted greys and faded hopes. Her reality is the scent of bleach on her hands, the ache in her feet after a 12-hour shift, the stack of overdue bills on her small kitchen table. Her life is a relentless cycle of work and worry, a desperate scramble to keep the lights on and afford the medicine for her younger brother Leo, whose lungs are as fragile as spun glass. Her waitress uniform is starched and clean, but the shoes are worn, the soles thin enough to feel the cold of the polished marble floor. She is invisible, a ghost meant to serve and disappear, her presence noted only when a glass is empty or a plate needs clearing. She keeps her head down, her movements efficient, her face a polite, neutral mask. Surviving in this city requires a certain kind of anonymity, a lesson she learned the hard way. To be noticed is to be a target. So she makes herself small, quiet, forgettable. But tonight, that anonymity is shattered. Isabella Van Doren, a woman whose shoes cost more than Ilara makes in 6 months, has just deliberately knocked a priceless Ming vase from its pedestal. The porcelain explodes against the floor, a sound like a gunshot in the opulent ballroom. A collective gasp ripples through the crowd. All eyes turn to the source. Isabella points a perfectly manicured finger, tipped in blood-red lacquer, at Ilara. You clumsy little fool! Look what you did! Her voice is high and sharp, designed for maximum humiliation. The accusation hangs in the suddenly silent air, thick and poisonous. Ilara stands frozen. Her tray is still perfectly balanced in her hands. She was 3 feet away from the pedestal. She saw the flick of Isabella's wrist, the cruel, bored smirk on her face as the priceless artifact tumbled. This was not an accident. This was a spectacle. The hotel manager rushes over, his face pale with panic. He bows and scrapes before Isabella, his eyes filled with terror. "Miss Van Doren, my deepest apologies. We will handle this immediately. This girl will be fired, of course. We will cover all damages." He turns to Ilara, his expression shifting from obsequious to furious. "What is wrong with you? Get out! You're finished!" This is the moment she is supposed to crumble. She is supposed to burst into tears, to apologize, to beg. It is what everyone expects. It is what her life of quiet desperation has taught her to do. Swallow the injustice, accept the blame, and disappear. But something inside her, a core of steel she didn't know she possessed, refuses to bend. Maybe it's the thought of Leo's next prescription. Maybe it's the sheer, unadulterated cruelty in Isabella's eyes. Or maybe she is just tired, so incredibly tired of being invisible. She lowers her tray to a nearby table with a steady hand. She turns, not to the manager, but to Isabella. She meets the cruel socialite's gaze directly. Her voice is soft, but it cuts through the silence with the clarity of a bell. "I did not touch the vase, miss. You knocked it over." The world seems to stop. The whispers die. A woman in a servant's uniform is contradicting Isabella Van Doren. It is unthinkable. It is social suicide. Isabella's face twists into a mask of theatrical disbelief. "How dare you? You're not only a clumsy oaf, you're a liar." "I am not a liar," Ilara says, her voice gaining a sliver of strength. "I saw you. You pushed it." From across the room, Julian Thorne watches. He'd seen the entire thing. The subtle, malicious flick of Isabella's hand, the cold satisfaction in her eyes, the waitress's impossible, suicidal defiance. He'd expected the girl to cry. He had expected her to be fired. He had expected to feel nothing. Instead, he feels a flicker, a spark of something unfamiliar in the frozen wasteland of his soul. It is not admiration. It is not pity. It is intrigue. A creature this small, this powerless, should not have a spine made of iron. It is an anomaly. And Julian Thorne is fascinated by anomalies. He begins to move. A slow, deliberate glide through the parted sea of gawking socialites. Every step is silent, measured, radiating an aura of absolute authority that chills the air around him. The low hum of chatter ceases completely as he approaches. They know their king has entered the arena. Isabella sees him coming, and her expression softens into a triumphant smirk. Her protector has arrived. "Julian, darling," she coos, her voice dripping with venom. "Can you believe the nerve of this nothing? Lying to my face." Julian doesn't look at her. His stormy eyes are fixed on Ilara. He sees the faint tremor in her hands, the paleness of her skin. But he also sees the unwavering resolve in her gaze. She does not look away. She does not cower. She holds his stare. A tiny, cornered dove refusing to be broken by the hawk. He stops directly in front of them, a monolith of dark power. The air crackles with tension. The manager looks like he might faint. He finally turns his head, a fractional movement, to look at Isabella. His voice is quiet, almost gentle, but it carries the lethal cold of a glacier. "You're a terrible liar, Isabella." The smirk melts from her face, replaced by stunned confusion. "What?" "Julian, what are you talking about?" "She did it." "I saw you," he states, not as an accusation, but as a simple, immutable fact, like gravity or time. "I saw you push it. You were bored." Isabella's face flushes a blotchy, ugly red. Her mouth opens and closes, but no sound comes out. She is exposed, stripped bare in front of the entire city's elite. Julian turns his gaze back to the manager, who flinches as if struck. The damages will be deducted from Miss Van Doren's account. This young lady will not be fired. In fact, You will give her a bonus for her trouble. Yes, Mr. Thorne. Of course, Mr. Thorne. The manager babbles, nodding frantically. Julian then does something that sends a shockwave through the room. He looks at Isabella, his eyes utterly devoid of any warmth. We're done. The engagement is off. My security will escort you home. Have your things removed from my penthouse by morning. He dismisses her. A queen dethroned with a single sentence. Her dynasty, her social standing, her entire world incinerated in a breath. She stares at him, her face a canvas of horror and disbelief, before his men gently but firmly guide her away, a disgraced exile. The crowd pretends not to stare, but they are all watching, their minds racing. The king had just cast out his queen for a waitress. Julian's attention returns to Elara. She is staring at him, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and confusion. He sees a tiny bead of blood on her hand, where a shard of porcelain must have nicked her. Without a word, he reaches into his breast pocket and pulls out a pristine white silk handkerchief. He takes her hand. Her skin is cold. His touch is surprisingly gentle as he dabs away the single drop of blood. Are you all right? He asks. The question is low, a rumble that seems to vibrate through her bones. She can only nod, her throat too tight to speak. He presses the handkerchief into her palm and closes her fingers around it. The silk is impossibly soft. Go home, he says. It is not a suggestion. It is a command cloaked in the guise of concern. And then he is gone, melting back into the crowd with Marcus at his side, leaving Elara standing alone in the center of the ballroom, the silence broken only by the frantic sweeping of broken history. She looks down at the silk in her hand, stained with her own blood, and feels as though she has just survived a hurricane. She doesn't yet realize she is standing in its eye. 2 days later, the hurricane finds her. It arrives in the form of a black car, silent as a shark, that waits for her outside the rundown apartment building she calls home. Marcus gets out. The sheer size of him blocks the evening sun. Miss Vance, he says, his voice a gravelly monotone. Mr. Thorne wishes to see you. Fear, cold and sharp, lances through her. She thinks of the gala, of the ruined socialite, of Julian Thorne's arctic eyes. She clutches the strap of her worn bag. I can't. I have to get home to my brother. Your brother is being taken care of, Marcus says, a statement of fact that terrifies her more than any threat. A private nurse is with him now. Please, get in the car. There is no choice. There was never a choice. The moment his world touched hers, her own ceased to exist. She gets into the car. The leather seats are cool and smell of money and power. The city slides by through tinted windows, a world she can see but no longer touch. They drive to the top of the city, to a skyscraper that pierces the clouds, a needle of black glass and steel. The penthouse is a cavern of minimalist design. White walls, black furniture, and a wall of glass that overlooks the sprawling metropolis like a god's eye view. It is magnificent and utterly soulless. Julian Thorne stands by the window, a silhouette against the city lights. He turns as she enters. He is not wearing a tuxedo now, but a simple black sweater and dark trousers. The casual attire makes him seem even more dangerous. Elara Vance, he says, his voice filling the vast space. Age 24, orphaned at 18. Legal guardian to your brother, Leo. Age 16. He suffers from cystic fibrosis. You work 2 jobs, 60 hours a week, and you are 3 months behind on rent. Your brother's medical bills are substantial. He recites the bleak facts of her life as if reading a corporate report. Each word is a nail hammering her into place. He has dissected her existence, laid bare all her struggles and fears. She feels a flash of anger through the fear. Why did you bring me here? Why are you doing this? He walks towards her, his movements fluid and predatory. Because I have a proposition for you. A contract. He stops a few feet from her. I require a caretaker, a companion of sorts. She stares at him, confused. A caretaker? For you? A flicker of something pain, sorrow, something ancient and buried, crosses his face for an instant. No, for my mother. He gestures to a tablet on a marble table. He taps the screen, and a photo appears. It's a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, though her gaze seems distant, lost. Her name is Eleanor. She has advanced dementia. She lives in my estate outside the city. She requires round-the-clock care. The nursing staff is competent, but they lack warmth. She is agitated, unhappy. He looks from the photo back to Ilara. At the gala, I saw you defend yourself when you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. You showed courage. And when I saw you with my mother's favorite flowers, lilies of the valley, on your uniform pin, I realized you possessed a gentleness that cannot be bought. It was a small detail, a cheap pin she wore to remind her of her own mother. He had noticed. He noticed everything. I want you to be her companion, he says. You will live at the estate. You will talk to her, read to her, be with her. You will bring a semblance of peace to her world. He names a salary, a number so astronomical it makes her head spin. It is more money than she could earn in 10 lifetimes. It would solve everything. Leo's medical care, a better apartment, a future. The catch comes, as it always does. There are conditions, he continues, his voice dropping, becoming a silken trap. You will cease all contact with your old life. No friends, no outside communication that I do not approve. You will live on my property, under my rules. Your brother will be moved to the finest private medical facility in the country, with the best doctors. His every need will be met. But you will not see him without my permission. He takes a step closer. The air grows thin. You will be entirely mine. Your time, your freedom, your life. They will all belong to me. In exchange, I will solve every problem you have ever had. It is a deal with the devil, a gilded cage. He is offering to save her brother by imprisoning her. She looks at his cold, unreadable eyes, searching for a hint of humanity, and finds only the chilling clarity of a business transaction. She thinks of Leo, of his labored breathing in the night, of the constant fear that shadows her every waking moment. She has no choice. He knows she has no choice. That is part of the design. I accept, she whispers, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. A ghost of a smile touches his lips. It does not reach his eyes. Good. Marcus will take you to collect your things. Your new life begins now. The Thorn Estate is not a home. It is a fortress. It lies nestled in acres of manicured wilderness, a modern marvel of glass, steel, and stone, surrounded by a wall high enough to keep the world out, or a prisoner in. The gates are wrought iron, guarded by silent men with weapons hidden beneath their jackets. The driveway is a winding mile of silent, imposing trees. Ilara feels smaller than ever as Marcus drives her towards the main house. It rises from the landscape like a jagged piece of the night sky, cold and intimidating. There are no flowers in the gardens, only severe geometric shrubs and stark white sculptures. It is a monument to wealth and isolation. Inside, the chill continues. The rooms are vast, cathedral-like spaces, furnished with minimalist precision. Everything is beautiful, expensive, and untouched. It feels less like a place where people live, and more like a museum of a life that has yet to happen. The air is still and silent, heavy with unspoken history and sorrow. Marcus leads her through the echoing halls to a suite of rooms that are larger than her entire apartment. They are luxurious, with a wall of glass overlooking a dark, placid lake. A closet is already filled with new clothes in muted, elegant colors. Her old life has been erased and replaced with this sterile perfection. Mr. Thorne's mother is in the West Wing, Marcus informs her, his voice flat. A nurse will take you to her in the morning. Your duties begin then. Do not wander the grounds without an escort. He pauses at the door. And do not try to leave. The warning hangs in the air long after he is gone. Elara walks to the window and presses her hand against the cool glass. She is a bird in a beautiful, empty cage. The next morning, she meets Eleanor Thorne. A nurse with a starched, professional face leads her to a sunroom filled with plants. The old woman is sitting in a wheelchair, staring out at the lake, her hands resting in her lap. She is frail, a ghost of the woman in the photograph, her kind eyes clouded with confusion. Eleanor, the nurse says loudly, this is Elara. She's going to be spending time with you. Eleanor doesn't respond. She seems lost in a world of her own, a world Elara cannot see. The nurse gives Elara a pitying look. She has good days and bad days, mostly bad. Just try to keep her calm. The nurse leaves, and Elara is alone with the silent woman. She pulls up a chair, her heart aching with a familiar sorrow. She remembers her own grandmother in the final years, the way her memories had slipped away like sand through her fingers. She doesn't speak. She just sits. For an hour, they share the silence. Then, softly, Elara begins to hum. It's an old lullaby her mother used to sing to her and Leo, a simple, gentle melody. Eleanor's head turns slightly. A flicker of awareness in her foggy eyes. Her fingers twitch in her lap. Encouraged, Elara begins to sing the words, her voice quiet and clear. It's a song about a garden, about bluebirds and sunshine. As she sings, she sees a single tear trace a path down Eleanor's wrinkled cheek. From a security monitor in his office, a dark room lined with screens showing every angle of his fortress, Julian watches. He sees the tear on his mother's face. He has not seen her show any emotion, other than fear or frustration, in years. The nurses, the doctors, the therapists, none of them had been able to reach her. But this girl, this waitress from the gutter, reaches her in an hour with a simple song. He watches as Elara gently takes his mother's hand, her touch hesitant at first, then firm and reassuring. He watches her talk to Eleanor not as a patient, but as a person, telling her about the city, about the funny way her brother laughs, about the smell of rain on the hot pavement. Days turn into weeks. Elara becomes the one constant in Eleanor's drifting world. She reads her poetry, her voice a soothing balm in the silent mansion. She brings in flowers from a hidden, overgrown corner of the garden she discovered, filling the sterile sunroom with color and life. She learns that Eleanor loves the scent of lavender and the feel of cashmere. She treats the matriarch of the Thorne Empire with a dignity and kindness that the woman has been denied by her own illness. She is not just a caretaker, she is a friend. And Julian watches it all. He finds himself drawn to the monitors in his office, his billion-dollar empire momentarily forgotten. He observes her patience, her resilience, her unwavering moral compass. She never complains. She never pries. She simply exists within the walls of his prison, and in doing so, she brings a light into its darkest corners. He begins to orchestrate accidental meetings. He finds her in the vast library late one night, where she's tracing the titles on the spines of books she could never afford. You can read them, you know. His voice startles her from the shadows. They are not just for decoration. She jumps. her hand flying to her chest. "Mr. Thorne, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were here." "This is my house, Miss Vance. I'm always here." He steps into the light. "My mother seems calmer since your arrival. She has moments of clarity," Alara says softly. "Today she remembered my name." He nods, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "She hasn't remembered mine in 5 years." The confession is stark, stripped of emotion, yet it hangs between them, a raw and painful truth. For the first time, she sees not the monster, not the king, but a son who has lost his mother while she is still alive. Her heart aches for him, an impulse she immediately tries to suppress. Pity is a dangerous emotion to feel for a man like Julian Thorne. "I'm sorry," she whispers. "I don't need your pity," he says, the cold mask snapping back into place. But the moment of vulnerability has passed between them, an unspoken secret that now connects them. He watches her more closely after that. He sees the way she talks to the household staff, with a respect they are not accustomed to. He sees her leaving a portion of her own dessert for the young kitchen maid who looks homesick. He sees her kindness, a currency his world does not recognize and cannot corrupt. He feels a dangerous, unfamiliar emotion taking root in the permafrost of his soul. It is a terrifying, possessive urge to protect her purity, to keep her locked away from the filth of the world, his world. He brought her here to be a tool, a solution to a problem. But she is becoming something else entirely. She is becoming the one thing he has never allowed himself to have: a vulnerability. The first sign of the coming storm is a whisper on the wind, a piece of digital chatter intercepted by Julian's security network. A rival family, the Falcones, led by the ambitious and reckless Marco Falcone, is making moves. They are testing the borders of his empire, probing for weakness. Julian dismisses it as posturing. He has crushed men like Marco Falcone before. His fortress is impenetrable. His organization is loyal. He has built his kingdom on a foundation of fear and control, and he believes it to be absolute. He is wrong. The weakness is not in the walls of his fortress, but within the walls of his own family. His cousin, Adrian, a man whose ambition has always outstripped his talent, has been bleeding information to the Falcones for months. Fueled by jealousy and greed, he has sold the keys to the kingdom, security codes, patrol schedules, architectural weak points in the estate itself. He has given them the one thing they need to strike at the king: a way inside. The attack comes on a Tuesday night, under the cloak of a torrential thunderstorm. The rain lashes against the windows, and the wind howls like a hungry wolf, masking the whisper-quiet sounds of the assault team cutting through the perimeter fence. Julian is in his office, tracking a shipment, when the first alarm blares. Not the outer perimeter alarm, but an internal breach. West Wing. His mother's wing. Ice floods his veins. His carefully constructed world fractures in an instant. He is on his feet, a weapon in his hand from a hidden compartment in his desk, his voice a blade of command on the intercom. "Marcus, West Wing, lockdown protocol, now." Alara is in Eleanor's room, reading to the old woman by the soft light of a bedside lamp. The storm outside is violent, and Eleanor is agitated, her hands twisting in the blankets. Alara's calm voice is the only anchor in her sea of confusion. Suddenly, the lights flicker and die, plunging the room into near darkness, illuminated only by intermittent flashes of lightning. A moment later, the sound of shattering glass echoes from down the hall, followed by the muffled, ugly cracks of silenced gunfire. Fear, primal and absolute, seizes her. Her first instinct is to run, to hide. But then she looks at Eleanor, whose eyes are wide with a terror she cannot comprehend. The old woman is whimpering, a lost child. Alara's fear is eclipsed by a fierce, protective instinct. She pushes the heavy armchair from the corner of the room, wedging it against the door. She helps Eleanor out of bed and guides her to the far corner, away from the windows. "It's okay," Elara whispers, her own voice trembling. "It's just the storm. We're safe." She shields the frail old woman with her own body, making herself a barrier against the encroaching violence. The door to the suite splinters inward, kicked off its hinges. Two men in dark tactical gear spill into the room, their weapons raised. Lightning flashes, illuminating their masked faces and the cold, dead eyes behind them. Julian and Marcus move through the halls of the West Wing like wraiths of vengeance. The fighting is brutal, close quarters. Julian's movements are a symphony of deadly efficiency. He is not a businessman anymore. He is the monster he has always kept caged, unleashed in his own home. They dispatch the first wave of attackers, but more are coming. They have been cut off from the main house, and they are still 2 corridors away from his mother's room. A cold dread, an emotion he hasn't felt in years, grips his heart. He is afraid. Not for himself. For them. Back in the room, one of the intruders grabs Elara, yanking her away from Eleanor. His grip is like iron. He presses the cold muzzle of a gun to her temple. Well, what do we have here? A bonus. The other man keeps his weapon trained on the whimpering old woman in the corner. Elara's mind screams. This is it. This is how it ends. But as the cold metal presses against her skin, a strange, defiant calm settles over her. She will not die begging. She will not let them see her fear. She thinks of Leo, and a spark of pure, unadulterated rage ignites within her. Just then, the doorway is filled by Julian's silhouette. He is a vision from a nightmare, his face a mask of cold fury, his weapon steady in his hand. Marcus is a giant shadow behind him. The man holding Elara tightens his grip. Thorn, drop it, or the girl gets it. Then your mother. Julian's eyes are locked on Elara. He sees the gun at her head, and his world narrows to that single, horrifying point. The ice in his veins turns to white-hot magma. His control, the bedrock of his entire existence, shatters into 1,000,000 pieces. The thought of losing her is a physical agony, a knife twisting in the hollow space in his chest. He cannot get a clean shot. They are at a stalemate. The air is thick with the promise of death. And then Elara acts. It is not a calculated move. It is pure, desperate instinct. With all her strength, she stomps her heel down hard on the arch of her captor's foot. He grunts in pain, his grip loosening for a fraction of a second. It's all she needs. She drives her elbow backward, jamming it into his ribs. The man stumbles, his aim wavering for a heartbeat. A heartbeat is all the monster needs. 2 shots, so close together they sound like one, echo in the confined space. The man holding Elara collapses, a neat, dark hole in his forehead. The second man, who was turning his weapon towards Julian, falls an instant later, dispatched by Marcus. Silence descends, broken only by the sound of the rain, Eleanor's soft sobs, and Elara's ragged breathing. She stands, trembling, the phantom sensation of the gun still cold against her skin. The room smells of gunpowder and ozone. Blood is seeping into the pale, expensive carpet. Julian doesn't move for a second. He just stares at her, his chest heaving, his face a storm of emotions she cannot decipher. Then he is moving, crossing the room in 3 long strides, his weapon discarded. He doesn't speak. He reaches her and his hands are on her, rough and frantic. They roam her arms, her face, her neck, checking for injuries, for blood that isn't hers. His touch is not gentle. It is desperate, a raw and terrified assessment. He finds none. His stormy eyes lock with hers. The cold is gone, burned away by a terrifying fire. And then he does something that shatters her world more completely than any bullet could have. He tangles a hand in her hair, tilts her head back, and crashes his mouth down on hers. The kiss is not a kiss. It is a war. It is a declaration. It is raw, possessive, and utterly desperate. It is the taste of fear and relief, of gunpowder and rage. It is the sound of a soul that has been locked away for a lifetime, breaking free in a single, violent act of possession. He is not asking. He is taking, claiming, branding her as his in the wreckage of his home. He breaks the kiss as abruptly as he started it, his forehead resting against hers, both of them breathing hard. His voice is a raw, guttural whisper, torn from the deepest part of him. I thought I lost you. The confession hangs between them, more intimate than the kiss itself. In those 4 words, he lays his soul bare. The monster has a heart, and it beats only for her. He pulls back slightly, his eyes scanning the room, the fury returning. His gaze falls on the bodies, then on his weeping mother, now being comforted by Marcus. His voice drops to a lethal whisper, a vow spoken into the space between their lips. They will never touch you again. I will burn this city to the ground before I let anyone harm you or my mother. He turns to Marcus. Get them to the panic room. Stay with them. Marcus nods, gently guiding a still shaking Elara and a confused Eleanor out of the room of death. As Elara looks back, she sees Julian picking up his weapon, his face once again an unreadable mask of cold stone. But she has seen what lies beneath. She has felt it, and she knows nothing will ever be the same. With Elara and his mother secured in the subterranean safe room, a vault of reinforced steel and concrete, Julian Thorne unleashes the purge. He moves through the rest of his home, a spectre of retribution. The remaining Falcone soldiers are hunted down and eliminated with brutal, surgical precision. The pristine white walls of his mansion become splattered with the crimson evidence of his rage. When it is over, he stands in the silent, blood-soaked foyer, the storm outside mirroring the one inside him. His men, the loyalists who survived the initial onslaught, move quietly, cleaning up the mess, removing the bodies. The business of death is a tidy one in his world. Marcus returns. In his hand is a satellite phone, recovered from the pocket of the attack team's leader. We found it, boss. The source of the breach. He hands the phone to Julian. The screen displays the last message sent before the assault began. The cage is open, the dove is inside. The sender is a ghost number, but Julian's network is already tracing it, peeling back the layers of encryption. It takes less than 10 minutes. The result appears on Julian's tablet. A name, a face. Adrian Thorne, his own blood. The betrayal is a cold, sharp blade twisting in his gut. It is not the strategic loss that pains him, but the personal sting of it. He had always known Adrian was weak and envious, but he had never imagined him capable of this, of endangering Eleanor, of endangering Elara. He looks at Marcus. Find him, bring him to the warehouse by the docks, and bring me Marco Falcone. The order is given with a chilling lack of emotion. The king is back on his throne, and judgment is coming. He goes down to the panic room. The heavy steel door hisses open. Elara is sitting on a small cot, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, while his mother sleeps fitfully on another, sedated by a medic. Elara looks up as he enters, her eyes wide and haunted. He walks to her and crouches down, bringing himself to her level. He takes her hands. They are still cold. The contract is void, he says, his voice soft but firm. You are not my employee, Elara. Not anymore. She stares at him, her expression a mixture of confusion and fear. What? What am I, then? You are mine, he says, the words a possessive, undeniable truth. You are the queen of this house, of this life. You are not a caretaker. You are its heart. And I am a monster when that heart is threatened. He is rewriting the rules of their world, elevating her from servant to sovereign in the bloody aftermath of the siege. He is offering her not a cage, but a throne beside his own. It is a terrifying, exhilarating proposition. I have business to attend to, he says, his thumb stroking the back of her hand. It will be unpleasant, but when I return, this will all be over. The threats will be gone, and we will begin. He leaves her there, in the safest place in his world, and goes out to wage a war. The purge is swift and biblical in its ferocity. The Falcone family, which had been a thorn in his side for a decade, is dismantled in a single night. Their businesses are shattered, their assets frozen, their key players vanished into the city's dark underbelly. Marco Falcone is dragged from his bed, a cowering wreck of a man who finds his arrogance has no currency when faced with true, cold-blooded power. Adrian is found hiding in a cheap motel, his bag packed, ready to flee with the blood money he was paid. When he sees Julian step out of the shadows, his face turns the color of ash. The warehouse is a cavernous, forgotten place that smells of salt water and rust. Marco and Adrian are tied to chairs in the center of the vast, empty floor, illuminated by a single, harsh light from above. Julian circles them like a shark. He is calm. It is the calm at the center of a hurricane, a terrifying stillness that promises utter destruction. He speaks to Marco first. You came into my home. You threatened my mother. You put a gun to the head of the woman I value. The hesitation is slight, but it is there. He cannot yet say the word. You did this for money, for territory. Predictable, boring. He turns to Adrian. The disappointment in his eyes is more terrifying than any rage. But you, my father's brother's son, you did this out of spite. You endangered our own blood. You endangered an innocent woman, all because you felt you were owed something. Adrian is sobbing now, pathetic pleas for mercy spilling from his lips. Julian, please, I was a fool. They made me do it. Julian ignores him. He looks at Marco. You will sign over everything you own to me, your entire empire, and then you will disappear. If I ever hear your name spoken again, even in a whisper, I will find you. He then looks at Adrian. You get nothing. Not even a quick end. The specifics of Adrian's fate are left unspoken, a horrifying blank for the imagination to fill. The traitor's end will be a lesson, a story told in whispers to ensure no one ever dares to cross the Thorn family again. The retribution is absolute. By dawn, the city's power structure has been irrevocably altered. The Thorn Empire is stronger, more feared than ever before. The king has put down a rebellion and reminded everyone why he wears the crown. 6 months pass. A time jump that allows the blood to dry and the whispers to fade. The city settles into its new reality under the undisputed reign of Julian Thorn. But within the walls of the fortress-like estate, a different kind of transformation is taking place. The house is no longer cold and sterile. Elara has filled it with life. There are fresh flowers in every room. Music, soft and classical, often plays in the halls. The staff, who once served in fear, now do so with a genuine respect and affection for their new mistress. Elara has found her footing in this strange new world. She is no longer the timid, invisible waitress. She carries herself with a quiet confidence, a grace that comes not from wealth or status, but from an inner strength she has finally embraced. She is the heart of the home, and her influence softens its hard edges. Her relationship with Julian has evolved into something deep and complex. The brutal passion of that first kiss has tempered into a fierce, protective intimacy. He is still a man of few words, a creature of shadows and control. But with her, he is different. She sees the man behind the monster. She sees it in the way he watches her with his mother, a look of profound gratitude in his stormy eyes. She sees it in the quiet moments when he will simply take her hand, his touch a silent communication of his need for her presence. He learns to sleep through the night without nightmares when she is beside him. He, in turn, is mesmerized by her. Her kindness is a foreign language he is slowly learning to understand. She has not been corrupted by his wealth or his power. She remains stubbornly, beautifully herself. She has not saved him from his darkness, but she has given him a light to navigate by. She has tamed the monster, not by caging it, but by giving it a reason to be a man. Leo is thriving at the medical facility. His health has improved dramatically with the best care money can buy. Elara speaks to him on video calls every day, and Julian arranges for visits whenever she asks. He has kept his every promise. One evening, he comes to her as she arranges flowers in the grand foyer. He is holding a velvet box. "There is a gala tonight," he says, "at the Grand Imperial Hotel, the Starlight Charity Gala. The same event, the same place where their worlds collided." She looks at him, understanding dawning in her eyes. This is a statement, a coronation. He opens the box. Inside is a necklace, a cascade of sapphires the color of a twilight sky, set in a web of platinum and diamonds. It is a queen's ransom. "I am not asking you to be my fiancé," he says, his voice low and serious. "That is a title for contracts and alliances. I am asking you to be my wife, my partner, my queen." Tears well in her eyes, but she doesn't let them fall. She smiles, a real, radiant smile. Yes. The return to the Grand Imperial Hotel is a spectacle. When Julian Thorne enters the ballroom, a hush falls over the crowd. But it is the woman on his arm who steals their breath. Elara is transformed. She wears a gown of deep sapphire silk that matches the necklace at her throat. It shimmers under the crystal chandeliers, clinging to her form. Her hair is styled in an elegant updo, and her face, once a mask of weary anonymity, now radiates a serene and confident power. She is no longer the invisible waitress. She is magnificent. She meets the stares of the city's elite, not with fear, but with a calm, steady gaze. She sees the shock, the envy, the grudging respect. She moves beside Julian, not as an accessory, but as his equal. They are a united front, a king and queen returning to the scene of their genesis. Later in the evening, as Julian is engaged in a quiet, intense conversation with a business rival, Elara excuses herself. She walks towards the terrace for a breath of fresh air. On her way, she sees it happen. A young waitress, no older than she was, her face etched with exhaustion and nerves, misjudges a step. Her tray, laden with champagne flutes, tilts precariously. She manages to save it, but a single glass slips and shatters on the floor. The hotel manager, the same man from that fateful night, descends upon the girl like a vulture. His face is purple with rage. "You useless girl! Are you blind? Do you know how much this champagne costs?" The young waitress flinches, tears springing to her eyes. She begins to stammer an apology. "I'm so sorry, sir. Elara steps forward. Her movement is calm, deliberate. She places a gentle hand on the manager's arm. "That's enough." Her voice is not loud, but it carries an authority that stops him cold. He turns, ready to unleash his fury. And then he sees who it is. His eyes widen in recognition, and all the color drains from his face. He is looking at the woman Julian Thorne remade the world for. Madame Thorne," he stammers, his demeanor shifting instantly to one of terrified deference. "My apologies. I was just handling a staff issue." "It was an accident," Elara says, her voice still quiet, but now laced with ice. It will be cleaned up. You will not take the cost from her pay, and you will apologize for humiliating her. The manager stares at her, aghast. But one look at her unyielding expression, a reflection of the man whose name she now carries, is enough. He turns to the waitress and mumbles a mortified apology before practically fleeing. Elara turns to the young girl who is staring at her with wide, grateful eyes. Elara gives her a small, reassuring smile. It's all right. Everyone makes mistakes. She reaches into the small, elegant clutch she is carrying and pulls out a folded bill. $100. She presses it into the girl's hand. For the trouble. The waitress looks down at the money, then back at Elara, her mouth agape. I can't. Yes, you can, Elara says softly. Just be careful. Not every monster who watches from the shadows is a prince in disguise. She walks away, leaving the girl staring after her, a symbol of hope in a world that so often feels hopeless. Elara has ascended to the throne, but she has not forgotten what it felt like to be a pawn. She has become a queen who rules not with cruelty, but with the grace and kindness that were always her true strength. She has kept her soul. The final scene is one of quiet, domestic peace. It is weeks later, a perfect autumn afternoon. The Thorn estate is bathed in golden light. The gardens are no longer severe and geometric. They are filled with vibrant, sprawling life. Lilies of the valley, Eleanor's favourite, grow in abundance. In the garden, Elara sits with Eleanor, reading from a book of poetry. The old woman is having a good day. Her eyes are clear. She is smiling as she listens to Elara's voice. She reaches out and pats Elara's hand. You have a good heart, my dear. Julian stands on the terrace, watching them. He is not in the shadows. He is in the light. He is not wearing a suit, but a comfortable sweater. The hard lines of his face have softened. The storm in his eyes has calmed to a deep, steady sea. He walks down into the garden and joins them. He doesn't speak. He simply sits beside Elara and takes her free hand, lacing his fingers through hers. He leans over and places a gentle kiss on his mother's forehead. The king of the underworld, the architect of ruin, the monster who ruled a city built on fear, is at peace. He has found his humanity in the heart of an unbreakable dove. He had conquered the world, but she had conquered him. And in his surrender, he had finally won everything that mattered. The cold, empty fortress was now a home, and the silent king finally had a family to reign over with a love more powerful than any army, any empire. His new reign had begun.